Everyone see the screen okay? Yeah,
we can
okay,
see
great. So really happy to be with you all today. Thank you very much for having me. I just want to talk to you a bit about a project I developed during my MA Applied Linguistics. So I will define some of the key terms first, share how I kind of arrived at this topic, what some of my students' take up has been, share with you some of the key literature, and look at a couple of sample activities leading into counter arguments and hedging, and then I'll wrap things up. Obviously we're all in the ACLIT SIG, but we all know too that academic literacies can be hard to define. So for today, I'm talking really about students' understanding, interpretation, and organization of knowledge, especially in relation to existing academic conventions like vocabulary and rhetoric. And like Leon Street and probably everybody here, I believe that reading and writing are social practices that change across disciplines. Memes are also quite tricky to define because there are many different kinds, but today I'm specifically talking about image macros. So those are images, text and so on that's passed very quickly from one internet user to another, usually with changes that make it humorous. Hedging, just for clarity, I mean using cautious language in academic writing to avoid appearing definitive, and keying, that's presenting information in a way that's representative of a certain genre or tone. Okay, so a little bit of reflection from me. I started using memes to build rapport when I worked in secondary education. So we had a lot of content to get through. I wanted to keep things fresh, get students' attention. It's also tongue in cheek, you know, you can laugh at yourself. It's like, oh, the teacher thinks that she's cool for using memes. I found this really successful in establishing common ground, starting a dialogue with my students. So it's something I took with me when I began working in tertiary education as well. This is a slide from my introductory English composition lesson. There's a lot for students to take in during this lesson. And one thing is that I offer them a late submission per semester. I'm trying to encourage discussions about procrastination and help them to get support. So they're taking in information, and then I like to kind of deadpan in there. Also, if you're submitting late work, memes are appreciated, especially Harry Potter or cat related memes. And now I'll share with you a bit about students' take up of this. So everything in this section came from my students who started to take up and use memes in their own ways. Memes were not just appearing in communications about late work. You can see a cat meme here. This is because a student wanted to come to a different session. A Harry Potter meme about forgetting. A student couldn't remember what they were supposed to be doing. Although, as we all know, the instructions are on e-learning. Here, this isn't technically a meme because it's not designed to be shared, but you can see some of those influences, the image plus text. So I'd asked the students to share whether they could use each other's sources during a project. And I think they've really concisely used the image and text format here to present that information. These memes also appeared in presentations. The reason the pictures are such poor quality is because I think the students made them specifically for these presentations. And I looked back at these and I started thinking, okay, we have the same format, it's buzz and witty, but one student's worried about the rules in essay writing and one seems to be worried about plagiarism. So they're the same format of meme, but they're telling us something different about students' concerns. This one is a bit cheeky, but fair enough, I think. So teacher, you can't just write an essay overnight. The exam, you have 1 hour to write this essay. And, you know, I looked at this that was in a student presentation, and yes, we talked about, you know, appropriateness of tone, but I thought fair enough, actually. You know, my institution encourages us to give finals where they have to write an essay in time conditions after telling them to plan diligently all semester. And yeah, I just started thinking, well, these students are really using memes in an interesting way to express their opinions, and they're actually demonstrating skills like argument, which we want to develop for them. So the literature in brief, as we know, at the moment, English is the most widely used language for sharing academic knowledge. So accessibility here is really important. We need to understand why our students are struggling and intervene in a way that's student-centered and scaffolded. So memes, I think, are really useful for this. I developed this work also by looking at Fiona English's work in regenering. So she had students rewrite an essay in a different genre, you know, even as a podcast or as a play, and they really seemed to get a better understanding of what they were doing. And keying, which I mentioned earlier, well, memes can let students connect to different genres and viewpoints, maybe in a less threatening way, because they're very adaptable and there's a wide range of tones. In terms of rapport, well, memes are actually already used a lot online for collective identity building, and that's the kind of thing that's necessary for us to have successful classroom dynamics. We all, as educators, know how valuable rapport is, and you know it's almost a no-brainer really that can improve grades and student motivation. And students have been shown to appreciate humor, knowledge of subject matter, and teaching techniques, which I argue memes are a perfect combination of. So they also, memes, let us to source visuals from our learners, which has been proven to be beneficial. There's tons of authentic material out there on the internet. They've been used a little bit in teaching before, either as a general aid for like grammar teaching or more in depth looking at visual and critical literacies. But there's very little out there in terms of methodological frameworks at the moment. So I'm going to outline some kind of lead-in activities in this section. I do actually have a more in-depth lesson plan available, so people can contact me after the presentation if you're interested. I noticed that my students had a lot of problems with counter arguments. So why should I remind someone of the opposite point of view to my own? So they didn't know why they should do that or how to structure it. They also struggled often with hedging. So they thought that made them sound less certain, which is, I think, quite an intuitive way to look at it, really. So these next couple of activities are, as I said, a lead-in to these 2 points. So in this meme, this man is saying, you can sort your life out anytime, the pub closes in 5 hours. So this is from a British sitcom, Black Books, but that context isn't necessary. Just, you know, an added bonus. So I'd ask students, you know, what outcome does he want here? Well, he wants his friend to go to the pub with him. Why has he phrased his argument in this way? Obviously, he's not really taking her seriously because he's saying that the pub is more important, but he's kind of acknowledging her point of view first. I'd ask students whether they think it's a strong argument and why, and then try to have them personalize it. So can you think of a time you tried to convince a friend to do something? What techniques did you use? Did it work? Why or why not? And here I find students, everyone has this, it's like a universal experience of bargaining with your friends. So you might say, I know that you're really busy and really stressed, but I think it's a great idea for you to take a break. So let's just go for 1 pint, I'll pay, and you can be back in bed by 9. So that's a way to get students thinking, oh, actually, these are skills that I already used in my personal life. Moving on from that lead-in and discussing the key messages in the meme, I then suggest scaffolded tasks. So the ones that I've designed are specifically for trainee teachers, getting quite meta, but you can adapt them easily for different disciplines. So you have different kind of statements that students work in groups to create counter arguments for. Then a reading model from an academic text with tasks. I get students to identify what the author's position is, as well as the counter arguments used and how these are structured. For homework, they would then maybe write a short essay employing counter arguments and try to find a meme summarizing their position. The idea there being that they repeat the reading tasks at the beginning of the next lesson. So they read the partner's work, they try to identify their position, their counter arguments, and the meme is there as a supportive learner-sourced visual. So they can say, yeah, I can see how this summarizes your point, or actually, I don't really get the connection here. How can we make this clearer? So that's counter arguments. Now, some of you may have come across this sort of thing in the wild. There is a tendency generally for men on the internet to talk about how amazing women look when they're not wearing makeup. But the problem is, well, several layers of problems there. One problem is they're almost always talking about women who are wearing quite a lot of makeup. So here we have Nikki looks better without makeup. We can see her natural beauty. Or yo, Taylor Swift without makeup caught me by surprise. She's way prettier without it. So this kind of thing gave birth to this meme. Dudes literally have no idea what no makeup looks like. So getting my students to talk about this, I would say, you know, what's the result of these people writing so definitively here? Well, they're literally being mocked. We can see that because we have the crying laughing emoji. Why might we want to avoid that in our writing? Well, we want to be taken seriously, right? How can we avoid this? We might say something like, Kylie Jenner appears to be wearing little to no makeup. The person at least who's talking about Rihanna has hedged somewhat with probably, but the others are too definitive. So with that in mind, I try to elicit a few more examples from the students, move them on to practice activities like adding appropriately cautious hedging vocabulary into different sentences. Then try and find a meme that, like this one, could benefit from hedging or one that uses it effectively. And for homework, I'd have them rewrite 2 paragraphs of their most recent essay, trying to include some of this vocabulary. And that would be my approach on that one. So in conclusion, L2 tertiary EAP students, or LX as I now generally prefer to say, face an extra level of difficulty during what's already a challenging academic transition. And indeed, you know, many L1 English speakers, it's a huge jump going from high school to university as well. So that's really not helped by a lack of practical and specific guidance or material that they can relate to and connect to. So I think that memes really have the potential to develop academic literacies, and also, as hopefully you saw from just a small fraction of the communication with my students that I shared with you, simultaneously fostering student-instructor rapport. So that's me. Thank you very much for listening. And I think this presentation will be available after the session as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Emily. So any questions for Emily? Stephanie? No question. No, that was a clapping. I thought it was a raised hand.
I do have a question. I was also applauding.
Okay.
Thank you, Emily. I thought that was really interesting. I really thought the idea of communicating visually, I think that, you know, academic work is so text heavy when you're teaching writing and reading skills. It's so text heavy, but these concepts of argument and counter argument or hedging, you know, we don't need to read about them. We can explain them, you know, these concepts in other ways. I thought that was really, really effective in a literacy that's so accessible. I did wonder though, did you have any students that were resistant or didn't get it or kind of didn't want to participate in it?
No, so in my, because I wrote a paper on this as well for my MA, and I did acknowledge that, you know, there are going to be, especially maybe older students, because obviously not all of our students are like 18 to 21, who might not get memes, but you know, the average Facebook user is 50 and will see or use at least one meme a day. So my personal anecdotal experience, I haven't encountered anyone who like doesn't use or doesn't connect to memes, but I do totally acknowledge that that's a possibility. And I think, you know, an interesting pivot there could be asking that student to still personalize their examples. So can they find a picture that they think summarizes this thing? Or do they have like a text message from a friend where they're like, oh, my friend was trying to convince me to do this thing. So definitely you need to consider that during your planning, but I haven't yet come up against that. I think Laura,
Okay.
Laura has a question.
Yep.
Yeah, I have a question about nationality. Your students, your research, what parts of the world were they from?
Yeah, all over. So the majority probably from Europe, but so I work for the University of New York in Prague, and we have students from, I think, something like 50 or over 50 countries now. So we do have students from Asia, we have students from the Middle East. You know, obviously Europe is not like monolithic either, so many different areas of Europe. Yeah, all over really.
Yeah, because I was wondering, because I guess memes are kind of like a universal language in a sense, in some ways, aren't they? And so I was wondering, is there any cultural variance? And did you find that maybe European students, I know I'm putting people in a really big blob, which I want to avoid, but for simplicity's sake, I'm going to say, did you find there was a different interpretation, or did you find that some students needed more time? Did you feel that they interpreted things differently? What kind of culturally, how did you gauge it?
Yeah, so I have kind of minimal experience thus far of using the activities, but as I said, I've been using the memes themselves for years. But I have I've gone to some really interesting talks about a similar kind of thing. It was like WhatsApp stickers being used in Oman, and it was like kind of critiquing the COVID response and stuff. And there you could see that the main thing that seems to change with memes is, well, again, that's kind of oversimplifying things as well. But one of the reasons they can be so effective is because you do have that cultural context, and if you don't know a reference, you can find something that you do connect to. So there are definitely like geographically kind of clustered memes based around certain cultures, but equally, you know, if I saw like a Star Trek meme, I might not get the exact reference, but I would still get something from the text. And so letting students, this is one of the benefits of not just choosing the memes that students look at, but encouraging them to contribute, is that they are showing you and sharing with each other what cultural references they get and what those kind of mean to them.
Thank you.
Rachel?
Yeah. So did you have to warn them a little bit, or do you not think you have to, but maybe this doesn't transfer to all of, they can't use memes to all of their lecturers, and maybe because that's my, I use GIFs, and I always use GIFs and like an emoji onto my emails for these sort of things, but I'm like, it's great for me, but however some other lecturers may not appreciate that.
100%. And actually though, that this is not something I planned, but something that turned out to be really useful for their academic writing as well, because we were able to, you know, the Thomas the Tank Engine meme is like a bit on the edge, even for, you know, like more like liberal instructor. And we were able to have really kind of fruitful discussions about like audience awareness and how that translates to their writing. So we were able to kind of, it's like, you know, don't name them, but are there any instructors you think would really not appreciate these sort of visuals in your presentations? Okay, think about that. Think about how you write an email to this person, and now like let's think about how we can apply that to your writing as well.
Yeah, knowing your audience. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Sanchia?
Hi, thanks so much for that presentation, Emily. I found it really helpful. Those lesson outlines were really interesting to see. I have a question about how this might translate to assessment. I've seen a couple of examples on Twitter of lecturers who I think are mostly based in the US, and I know they have a lot more flexibility with modules, but is that something that you've thought about or tried?
Like incorporating memes into the assessments? No, but I'm very interested by that idea. At the moment, I just use them for like scaffolding and support. Can you think of any ways you've seen them used for assessment?
I've only seen what other tutors have written about. So I've seen a couple who have like a really small, maybe a 10% engagement component, and they have the students send them a meme that summarizes something from class content that week.
Yeah.
And then, you know, so they get 1 point every week over the 10 weeks.
That sounds fantastic, and thank you very much for that idea. Did I say it in this presentation? One of them, yeah, there's like the summary where I asked them to submit the meme summarizing their argument. So it would be easy to incorporate that, and I think that's to me, I don't know, I'm biased because obviously I'm really into memes, but that sounds like homework I would want to do.
Tim or question, or Stephanie?
Sorry, can I have another question? Because it's just occurred to me, thinking about the kind of the freedom and asking students to make memes. Did you have to set any boundaries in terms of the university being a kind of safe, respectful space, and thinking about saying to students the images that they're allowed to show, because there's a potential there to be offensive.
Yeah.
Kind of that tension between allowing them the freedom to express themselves with the kind of the wealth of the internet, but at the same time, making sure that it's not going to offend anyone.
Totally. That's definitely very important. I tend to try to have them set those expectations more generally in the first class anyway, because I don't know, especially these days, there's a lot of potential for things to kind of ignite and turn into big arguments. I'm sure we've all experienced that, even like whatever the best of intentions. But yeah, so I try to have them set those expectations early, tell me so that they are kind of invested in it, and just remind them about that regarding memes. Like you say, Stephanie, it's not really clear cut though. I know I didn't. So I was teaching a public speaking class at the high school I worked at, and they could kind of pick any topic, and one of them picked memes, not pressed by me, and his presentation, like some of those were really like challenging images, but he was being critical about them and saying how they can sort of like perpetuate certain things online, or like why some people try to use them to be offensive. So that was even harder really, because it was like secondary school students, and I didn't want everyone going home being like, oh, we saw these mad images in class today. But yeah, that at least we were actually again able to have kind of a good discussion. But so you're totally right, it is important to set those expectations. And also
I think the sort of the freedom of speech aspect that we kind of have facing in universities now, of being a space where you're not silencing anybody and dealing with challenging debates and questions. But yeah, it's hard. Sorry.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's it. You've exactly summarized it. Yeah.
Okay. So let's close this Q&A session. So can I just ask a quick question to close this part of our workshop? From your experience, Emily, of using memes in the higher education, so in an EAP classroom in higher education, what would you say is the most one or two important challenges that you had to face using memes with university students, and what you have done or what you did back then to overcome these issues or these challenges?
I think actually that's pretty much what Stephanie was just asking about. So making sure, or trying to kind of establish that balance between the like freedom of speech or freedom of expression. I think I've been very lucky, not that there haven't been some debates, but in general my students have been like really respectful of each other. And I think I would just recommend everybody maybe give this a try with an activity that you have that's tried and tested, that you feel really comfortable with, and you know, that generally works out pretty well for you, because I think you would be surprised because of how adaptable memes are. For me, it's less a kind of problem of using them and more maybe restraining myself not to use them too much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing part of your very interesting work. And shall we now move on to our group discussion? So I'll just